Yeah.
Now I'm just going to highlight where the chat box is, just in case anyone isn't sure. So you can share a few bits in there, things that are important to you at the moment, and issues, kind of, I guess, concerns that you have with the app as well, just so I can get a bit of a sense of what those things are.
Yeah, I think, yes, we're ready to
Yeah,
go.
we don't have anything in there just yet. Does anybody want to put any of their concerns in the chat box, and I can let...
Yes, I would. Hello?
Hello?
We can hear
Yeah.
you.
Hear me out. Right. Firstly, let's just to say, which is an issue, and I have spoken to councillors before. This is on Davidson Road in Croydon. It's been for almost a year now, next to towpath. There is a green area, children's play area. It's been there and it's been closed down. Obviously, I'm very concerned because it's an area for young people. It's a play space, and I'm very worried that we might lose it. So my concern is that, you know, to flag it and to highlight that it has been boarded up. You know, the weeds are overgrowing all the equipment, and it's just worrying because before it was being used, there were concerns. Obviously, it wasn't a supervised play space, so I think in the evenings you got maybe, you know, older children, sometimes adults using it to sit in and do things. I'm not sure. But just, yeah, to flag it up, and hopefully we can get that reopened as a children's play space, maybe with supervision, ideally, but if not, just an area where they can come to and use it locally. I know it's not, I think I spoke to, I'm not sure who it was, but I was told it comes under one of the housing associations. It might be family house, I'm not sure which one, but there was some negotiation, and I think it had already been flagged. But I just want to make sure that, you know, you've got that noted. It's by Towpath Way, the children's play space. Let's keep it open. Let's keep, you know, children's play in the focus.
Could you do me a favor and maybe drop the name of the playground in the chat, because that is what I will say, and then maybe we can, you know, we can continue the conversation with a specific, you know, problem later, maybe involve the local councillors as well.
Yes, Towpath, TOW.
No, if you can write in the chat, I do apologise because I don't have any pens.
I will. I think the problem is that I think Lee might be on her phone. Are you, Lee?
Yes, I am.
Yes, I've put it in, Lee, for you. I've written towpath.
Oh, thank you.
And stated, because as I said, you know, I'm advocating children's play, not to lose our green spaces, to keep, you know, children in the focus, because right now they're getting such a hard deal, and it's very concerning, you know, that
Yeah.
another
So
problem.
thank you, Lee, for sharing that. And I think there's, I guess, a few other kind of issues you highlighted there with kind of older young people needing somewhere to go. Is there anyone else who would like to share anything?
Nikki, I've got a couple here in the chat. So
please.
Jenny has said she received a text yesterday to say that the Google settings have already had COVID-19 exposure settings. And Casper has said that Apple and Android phone have an update that enables phones to participate with tracking apps. And he has put...
Oh, Rachel, you just muted yourself.
Sorry, that was me. Sorry.
Oh. That's all right. That's all right. Okay, great. Well, thank you for sharing these things that are important to you, especially your kind of concerns with the app. The fact that, you know, you care about how this app works, you care about your data privacy, you're caring about your local areas. It means that you care about what happens at Parliament. because Parliament is a place that is making decisions that affect all of these things. So I'm going to show you some examples of times this has been spoken about at Parliament, and talk about some of the ways in which you can contact people. So this is Parliament here. I'm sure you all recognise it. So Parliament is made up of the House of Lords, lords and baronesses who are chosen because they are experts. And then the House of Commons are MPs who we elect to represent us, to talk on our behalf. And Parliament has two jobs. So one is to legislate, so to pass the laws that we have to follow. And the other job is to scrutinise, to check the work of the government. And this, I guess, really plays into this idea of the app, that the app is something that's been come up by the government. And lots of MPs, lots of lords and baronesses share your concerns, and they've been asking the government about this, challenging them and trying to get them to change what they're doing. So just very quickly, just in case you're not sure the difference between Parliament and government, government is taken from Parliament. So government is mainly MPs, but some lords and baronesses from the biggest political party, which at the moment is the Conservative Party. They run the country, they run our public services, so the NHS, the police, and it's the government who have come up with this COVID app, and Parliament's job has been questioning, kind of talking to them about it. So if you have any questions about Parliament or government at this point, pop them in the chat. If you don't have access to the chat, then just come on the microphone. But I'll just pause here to see if you have any questions about this before we really get into the kind of how you can get involved, how you can change things through Parliament. So I'll just pause for a second. And please do ask me questions. There are really no questions too big or too small. I don't know what you know unless you tell me I don't know what you want to know. So it makes it more interesting if you ask me.
There's no questions as of the moment, Nikki.
That's all right then. Okay, so if you do have questions, if they come to you as you go along, please do put them in the chat box. I can't see the chat box because of how my screen works, so Rachel will be reading them out for me. But please do get involved and do ask the things that you want to know. So we're thinking about like how you can get involved in Parliament, how you can make a change. So just what I'd like to know to start off with you today is whether you've done any of the following. So again, if you have access to the chat box, you can put A, B, C, D or E in there. So have you ever A, contacted an MP, B, contacted a member of the House of Lords, C, started or signed a petition, D, given evidence to a select committee, or E, worked with an APPG, which stands for an all-party parliamentary group. So yeah, put A, B, C, D or E in the chat box. You might have done all of them, you might not have done any. It's okay, it's just so I can get a sense of kind of how you've already been involved, what extra things I can talk to you about.
Okay, so Sarah has contacted an MP and a member of the House of Lords and has given evidence to a select committee. Ben has contacted an MP and signed a petition, as has Elaine. So quite a few of us. Oh, and Jenny and Casper have also contacted an MP and started or signed a petition.
I don't know how to do the chat yet, but I have a question as well.
Go on.
I signed petition for the TV license.
Mm-hmm.
I also in touch with my MP a long time ago, which came out to goodness because there was a sheltered house in Warden and the children used to work with the bikes and things like that. And that was sorted out by my MP. Brilliant.
So that's a really good example then of someone contacting their MP and it coming to a positive conclusion, which is really great to hear. And we'll have a chance, maybe a few of you can share your experiences of it. So always my advice kind of with working with Parliament is your first point of contact should always be your local MP. So you're having your meeting with Steve Reed coming up, which is really exciting. I wonder, those of you who have said that you've contacted an MP, any of you willing just to come on the mic and share your experiences of doing that, how you found it, any kind of outcomes for it? Is there anyone who would come on? You don't have to, but it might be nice just to hear from your perspective. Oh, Ben, go on.
Yeah, so I've contacted local MPs a couple of times. My local MP, who I won't name, one thing that I did find was that it felt like the conversations ended up becoming more about their agenda, rather than trying to necessarily deal with the issues that I was facing. Yeah,
I think that's quite an interesting kind of point. I suppose, you know, MPs are there representing particular political parties, and they have manifestos, they have things that they want to achieve. And I suppose, I mean, it's I guess it's difficult thing to say, but I guess some of depending on what you're trying to do, if that's a big kind of national issue, it's almost you have to kind of sell to them, you know, this is why it's worth helping me, which I know sounds kind of odd, but I guess as an MP, you know, you're representing around 70,000 people in your constituency, in your area. You're getting around 400 emails a day. You know, they're not superhuman, I suppose. They have limits to what they can do and limits to their time. And it's one of the things we'll think about a little bit later, is how you can kind of tailor what you're doing to get in contact with them. But thank you for sharing that, Ben. Is there anybody else who would like to share anything?
Could I just ask, before they have surgeries, do they still have surgeries?
So I think each MP will be doing it individually. I think some will be doing it via Zoom like this, but I don't think any are really holding them face to face at the moment.
Not in this climate.
But usually.
Yeah.
Yeah, usually they will. So surgery is where you can go and see your MP face to face. And different MPs do it differently. So some will have it in their local office. Some you have to book in advance. Others are drop-in.
Yeah, that's what I did. Yeah.
Yeah. So they still do them. And actually going to see your MP face to face, if you have the time, if you have the ability to do it, it's really great. Because actually you're much harder to ignore face to face. But obviously that's not necessarily easy for everyone to do that. So emailing them or ringing up their office and talking to their staff are also both really good methods. Obviously email is much easier for a lot of people to do. And what I would say is always, you know, if you email them and you don't hear back for a little bit, ring them up, keep on top of them, you know, keep that pressure on them as it goes. And the reason, I guess, why it's worth getting in contact with your MP is, you know, your MP is there to represent you, that's their job. And they can help you with things, I guess, like things like with this app, so you could contact them kind of expressing your concerns around it, because that's challenging a government department, a government decision. Lee, with what you were talking about with the parks, parks tend to be a local council issue, but you can still get in contact with your MP if through kind of talking to the council you're not kind of happy with the outcomes. You could ask for your MP to write to the council on your behalf, perhaps, and help with that as well. So there's lots of kind of good reasons to contact your MP and get in contact with them.
Nikki, sorry to interrupt. There was a question from Jenny a little bit further up. What is an APPG? She's asking.
Yeah. So an APPG stands for an all-party parliamentary group. And they're a bit like clubs or societies at Parliament. So they're groups of MPs and lords and baronesses from all the different political parties, and they're people who are interested in particular subjects. So I'm just going to show you an example of one. So you can search for these on the Parliament website. And what I'm going to do after this session is I'm going to send a couple documents out. One that has a lot of information about how kind of different things that you can do with Parliament. And another that has various links to different things on the website. And Rachel will put some links in the chat as well. So you will get written information for all of this. But this is an example of an all-party parliamentary group on health. So as you can see, it says their purpose is to provide cross-party forum that brings together parliamentarians and senior health leaders to discuss key issues on the NHS. And what I would say these all-party parliamentary groups are useful for you in that, say you've contacted your local MP and either you haven't kind of moved forward with your issue, or if it's perhaps a national issue or a wider issue, you're looking for more people to support you. Having a look at the all-party parliamentary groups is a really great way of finding other people who you could get in contact with who might support your campaign. So the list of people we have on here, these are people who are already interested in your subject. They already care about it. They're already passionate about it. So you could get in contact with them, and they might be able to help you. They might be able to support you as well.
That's great, Nikki. No more questions. I've just answered a question for Jenny on not having received a response to an email, so I've answered that in the chat.
Brilliant, that's great. So let's have a little think about that then, and thinking about kind of how you can get in contact with your MPs, what you can ask them to do. So as I said, your local MP should always be your first port of call. I would say if you contact somebody else who isn't your MP, or is a Lord or a Baroness, which you can do. I'd always recommend just saying that you've contacted your MP already, and then just state a reason as to why you're contacting that other person. So this is just a kind of basic structure, I suppose, that we have here that you might want to use in thinking about how you structure, whether it's an email and whether it's a phone call, whether it's when you see them in person. So quite simply stating what the issue is. Talking about why it's important to you. So I definitely think having that personal element in your emails is really important. It really, will humanize you, humanize what you're talking about. So like with Lee's example about the park saying, it's thinking about the people in the local area. Why it's important to that MP or that peer. So it could be, as we said, it's something that they are interested in, they've spoken about. It could be that it affects the local area. And then what you actually want them to do. And I think that's really important, being really clear in what you want the outcome to be, as opposed to just a general, we want your support. This is how you can actually show you that they support you. So definitely always ask them to do something, have an action to show that they support your particular issue.
Hi, just to let you know, Nikki, Lee has raised their hand.
Oh, go on, Lee. I can see you on the camera now, which is nice. So do you want to come on? Oh, Lee, you're still muted at the minute. You just need to unmute yourself. There you go.
Yeah.
Oh, I still can't hear you, Lee. Don't know if that's me.
I heard a yeah and then silence. Try again, Lee.
Lee, you might have to join the audio. There might be a section that says join audio. I'm not sure why I can't hear you.
Anyway, put a time leave it then.
Oh,
we can
no, we can hear you.
You're very far away.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
yes.
Just about.
My volume, is it up?
No.
Sort of.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Brilliant. So, okay. Yes, I'm just listening, but I wasn't able to before just add what A, B, or C I was able to tap into. But yes, it's all very well, the process and everything. But sometimes, in an emergency, as we've had such how can I say, surreal circumstances going on at the moment with COVID-19, with track and trace, Black Lives Matter. It's all been so epic. So, this process that we are talking about, what's the reality in kind of getting some more immediate resolve on some of the epic issues, i.e. track and trace, the implementation of this on our phones without any consultation, which is just unbelievable in regards to our human rights. To me, it's in breach totally. So how do we get, impact the, the urgency and the immediacy of all of this? Because it's a madness. How can they just go ahead, government, put things that they haven't even consulted anyone about?
Yeah.
Immediate action and reaction, than this going ahead, doing all these things that are way over our heads. It's like all our liberties. I've never seen anything like this in my life. And we're going along like, lambs to the slaughter. That's how I feel, and that's how so many other people feel. It's just unbelievable. You know, right now, the whole world is together on issues. You know, my concerns, especially with the track and trace, we're already, you know, you can see with Black Lives Matters at a great disadvantage. So, you know, get some immediacy. It's all very well Parliament, House of Commons and the way, but the process is too slow. They have seen, you can see, we are out there, you know, vocalizing and doing everything. But everything just seems too slow in resolve. You know, all of a sudden, I know that I'm going off they want to do, how can I say, inquiries and investigations. But we've been doing investigations, they've been doing, should I say, investigations, inquiries for as long as I can remember. So let's get some immediacy, you know, the real problems, right? Track and trace. You know, how do we get it through to government that right now, that how many people, most of, I'm not talking about projects, charities, organizations, but individuals are not happy about this track and trace that's gone straight onto our devices without any consultation or consent.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think you're right there. I think a few things that I would like to pull out from what you said, Lee. So I think you're right in terms of perhaps some of the slowness of Parliament. You know, it isn't a perfect system. Some things do take quite a lot of time to kind of happen there. And I definitely think, you know, you're right. I'm not going to stand here and tell you that it's perfect in how it works. And actually, there's been lots of MPs, when you're talking about the Black Lives Matter and the fact that they keep sort of doing inquiries, there's actually been lots of MPs and Lords and Baronesses that have said exactly the same thing as you, that, you know, we don't need to keep having inquiries. There's been ones, they need to act on them. So like David Lammy, for example, spoke about the inquiry he did a few years ago into the justice system and saying, you know, you still haven't acted on some of those things. I guess what I would say though is that, you know, actually, you know, over the past few weeks, we have seen some really positive moves in terms of, you know, especially the Black Lives Matter, with people really taking to the streets and as individuals coming together as a collective. And we've seen that, you know, like with Marcus Rashford, for example, and his campaign. Elsie, is that a hand up?
Yes, I do. Because with this coronavirus, it affects a lot of the Black people. We talk about poor housing, poor dietary and everything like that, and diabetes and things like that. And they have these studies going around. But what I found is that all these things is lip talk. I need to see things in writing to hold people to be accountable. Because if you say something and you went away, we haven't got any trace to say this is evidence. You understand? So we need things on paper to say, well, these are the things the boroughs would look at. Start to individual things as well. The boroughs, where is their responsibility in making sure? Because although your government and MPs, local government is the one get the money from the central government. So therefore, what are they going to do about things like those? Yes, people are going on the street and march. Yes, we don't want any violence. The protest is good for us because we notice everybody are together, because we are one human race. But at the same time, I would like to see things put in place in writing, some of it.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting. I guess in terms of Parliament, like everything that's said at Parliament is recorded. So there's something called Hansard, where everything that the MPs and the Lords and Baronesses say in the actual chambers, so in the House of Commons, in the House of Lords, is written down. And there's quite a good website called They Work For You, where you can go on and you can actually have a look at your MP, and you can search for particular topics and see what they've said.
Well,
So
Sarah
actually,
Jones is good. Sarah, I can see Sarah on the TV. I know she's doing something. That's my MP.
that's good. So it's good to see your MP is working hard. But actually, that's a good resource for you to say, okay, you have said this in the chamber. Here is a quote. It is written down. That's a good resource for you to hold your MP to account. And you can do that as well. So like say you email them and you ask them to do something, can they agree?
Okay.
If you have access to social media, you know, put that on your social media account. Say, you know, here's the evidence. By doing that, you're really holding them to account and adding that pressure on them to show that they want to do something. Yeah, I can see
got a few, sorry, we've got a few other
Rachel.
comments just from other people. Just sorry, Lee, just before you come in. Jenny mentioned that she received a petition to protest that the government is planning to trial vaccines on the BAME communities. I haven't seen that petition yet. And then we've got Elaine saying most people feel we have not consented to track and trace. And Sarah said there's been a discussion about the app at the House of Lords some weeks ago. What did they discuss and what actions came out of it? So those are the comments we've got at the moment.
So I'll show you a couple examples of times when this app has been spoken about. There was actually a discussion in the House of Lords yesterday that I haven't added on to here. So this is from a couple of months ago, so this is back in April, and this is an MP called Afzal Khan, essentially asking those exact questions that you have. It's asking about data. I don't know if everyone can see this. I can read it out to you to see whether you can see it all right. But yeah, here's an MP asking about the contact tracing, asking about how personal data, and as you said, it should be set out in legislation. Now, with legislation, usually MPs do consult on it, so the government will produce what's called a green paper, which is a public consultation, and then order for something to become a law, it will go through what's called a public bill committee, again, which is a point at which the public can kind of give their feedback to it. Now, most of these are put on the Parliament website, and I suppose that's something else that Parliament needs to consider in terms of how it reaches out to people. How does it make people aware that this legislation is changing? The other thing I would like to just point out to you is that, so this I found in Hansard, so I mentioned that written record. And the other way that you can search and find out what's happening at Parliament about this app is through, you can search written questions. So these are questions that MPs have submitted in written form to the different government departments, and these all searchable online. So this is a question by Chi Onuwari, who's an MP in Newcastle, asking about whether data will be deleted afterwards. And we have a kind of response from the Secretary of State there. So these are both things in terms of you finding out information, ways that you can do that, but also in terms of you actually asking for an MP or a Lord or a Baroness to do things for you. You can ask them to ask a question to a government minister, whether that's oral or whether that's in written form. And for you, the reason I guess it is worth doing that is it means that although like you can contact a minister yourself, the minister doesn't have to respond to you, whereas the minister does have to respond to the MP. So as long as your MP can ask that question for you, then you will get a response from them. So I think that's something always worth considering, is actually this is really how they can really challenge that minister, really get it in. In terms of the specific House of Lords debate, I'm not sure what the specific outcome was, but as I said, you can have a little search for these on the internet. And I guess even in the past few days, we have seen a change in the app. So we know that they're changing from a centralised to a decentralised system, I believe. So the information that's kept is stored on your personal phone, as opposed through a kind of a more central system. And it looks like the app is really kind of being held back, I think, from, I mean, I don't have any special insight to it. I only know what I know is what I've read through the BBC and stuff, but it seems like it's being really pushed back, I think, because of a lot of the concerns that you've mentioned around data, around privacy. So yeah, I think it's been pushed back at the moment. Lee, you've got your hand up again, so we'll go back to you. Just remember, you need to unmute yourself, Lee, if you want to talk.
Sorry, unmute. Okay.
Yeah, you done it.
Yeah. Can you hear?
Yeah.
Right. Just to say that actually it's not because they've taken into account our concerns. It's just that they hurried the app without any consultation with the technical and science behind it. So this was actually a complaint on the technology side of things, is that they just thought it was a very simple way of forwarding it. And then by mistake, they realized after they got it out that there were issues around the technical side of it. So that's the only reason why we've got it as it is at the moment, not because of consultation, just as a correction to that.
And I guess, I suppose in that
Just
sense
so,
then, this is something that you can use to your advantage in
so
this
it's
delay
not
has now happened.
consultation. It's we can see how, I mean, look how quick they've managed to get this app out. It's just, regardless, I mean, it just is in breach of all our human rights, I would imagine, from what I understand of what our human rights are, what I understand about confidentiality and data, all what I've learned is not being applied in instances like that, because we can shout COVID-19. Nothing is an excuse. It doesn't rationalize, it doesn't warrant. And as I said, this impacts, and my concerns, like so many other people, are the disadvantage. It has some advantage if used in the right way, but this can also disadvantage us, as it has done in the past, for so many, so there are concerns about the reasons as to why we've got this, straight onto our phones. And for me, it's very worrying.
And I wonder here, because I know obviously you have your meeting coming up with Steve Reed. Has anyone here contacted their MP on this issue yet? Have you had responses from them? What have they said? So Elsie shaking her head.
No, I haven't done that.
You haven't done it yet?
I think the only thing what worries me, because I'm around a lot of older people, and the concern about the TV license, they don't know what to do, and they keep getting different. I mean, I will say to them what Casper will say to us. If you see something like messages coming to you to delete, I had so many people asking me for £150, 50 for my TV license. But because you don't have Gov up the top, and when we spoke to Casper the last time, so I'm saying to people, try not to answer those things because they're asking for money. So the Age UK, they put in for the TV license, and that is so long, and no one talks about it anymore. So you have worried people out there. I mean, when this COVID, we've been locked down for so long, if we didn't have that resource, what would have happened? Mental ill comes into you. Nobody cares about you anymore.
Yeah, and I think what you've done though is you've identified one of the big challenges with campaigning is that there's always so much going on and things can happen that overtake an issue. And I think the media really plays a massive part in that, in dominating kind of what people are talking about, what the conversation is. But actually what you have in terms of this network is you have the power of a collective, that as a group, actually you have that ability to really keep that pressure up, keep that pressure on your MPs, and through that on the government to change those things. Actually, just because, it's not, you aren't necessarily hearing about it, doesn't mean that you have to stop contacting your MPs or lords and baronesses about it. It doesn't mean that you have to stop talking about it. And I think that's definitely something to consider. And just if we think about kind of members of the House of Lords, along with contacting MPs, you can contact members of the House of Lords, and actually they're not affiliated to any constituency, any particular part of the country, so you can contact any of them. And you can search for them on the Parliament website, so I'll send you a link to this.
I've put the link in the chat box as well,
brilliant.
Nikki, so that's gone in.
Yeah, so it might be worth having a look. So like, for example, Lee, when you were talking about the Black Lives Matter, so there was a debate about that a couple of weeks ago. So Floella Benjamin, Baroness Lawrence, different people like that talking in that debate. They might be good people for you to get in contact with that issue as well. So these are people who are already experts, they already know about your issue. So it might be that they can kind of get up to speed a little bit.
Well, can I just say to you, as I said, since the Stephen Lawrence, with the greatest of respect to Baroness or Dame Lawrence, as I don't see much change, you know, from where
Nothing.
I'm, you know, we've had so many different inquiries. We still have police brutality. We're still having, you know, how can I say, discriminative practices, you know, within the, well, look at right now, within the health, within the school systems, with policing and all sorts. So, you know, yes, you know, we have the Baroness and others, but still we have the problems, and we are not seeing much change, you know. And for me, it's because it's institutionalized, and it's how do we get to the root and to the core to change it. You know, at the moment, making people baronesses that they sit in the House of Parliament makes sense. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to stop, the issues that, you know, are being raised through. When I say Black Lives Matter, I don't actually even mean the organisation. I just mean generally Black Lives Matter.
So and I wonder whether.
Oh, sorry. So they're saying every life matters. Of course, every life matters, and that's why I say Black Lives Matters, because every life matters. We must then say that's the reason why Black Lives Matters, because if everyone matters, we need to then start realizing then to put in
we're all together.
Black lives too. And people get it wrong because they say, well, every life matters, you know, it's not just Black lives. And if it is just, you know, if this is the case, that's the reason why Black Lives Matters too. So, you know, it's all kind of, it all ties into the track and trace. It all now ties into even now, all of a sudden they want to bring concern to give us the vaccine first, because it's been seen that you know, with the COVID-19, it impacts on our health more than any other group.
Taking it though.
Very worrying, very worrying.
So I guess
just wonder. But anyway.
Well, I wonder, perhaps following on from that point then, and kind of you were saying about there needs to be change, and perhaps we open this up to everyone. What change would you actually like to see? What you know, aside from the talk, what is the actual action that you would like to have? And you can share this in the chat box, or if anyone else wants to come on the mics, and you're welcome to do that. What do you actually want to happen?
It needs to start with the education, especially young children. We need to change the education system and stop buying
change
so that it can be open and stop, you know, once we get the young people, because what they've done is, especially, you know, as I said, I was with Lambeth for 20 years prior to that, with Wandsworth, working in the community and with children and young people. And when I left, we were the last of, you know, trying to fight for keeping these services available. So it was for the hard to reach and for the you know, Black ethnic minority groups to be able to access, because the whole school system and how it operates is also, you know, it doesn't always fit everyone. So we were working with those excluded and hard to reach groups. And for me, I feel that we need to start from the crux being the root. We, you know, in the community with the young people, the education system. When my sister was in school, she wanted to be a doctor. And what did they say to her? A doctor. You know, it was like, how, you know, you to become a doctor, oh, take that, you know, it's too far-fetched and that. So, as I said, you know, we came a long way. And I just feel, you know, what we are learning, you know, how can we continue being lied to and deceived? I loved history when I was in school, believe me.
Can I just say, we only have an hour, and I think really this is a very, very big subject, because I would really like to say more. This is a very big subject. Today's only to tell us about this, because to me, I would feel that there's all these the clubs that they close is very, very bad for the young people.
They got rid
all
of
those
it
youth
all.
clubs and things like that. So really, this is a big subject.
Yeah,
and
I think you're right, Elsie. I think maybe we need to move on so Nikki can keep giving you the ways that you can contact them, and maybe this is something you can discuss as a group after Nikki's presentation. Would that work?
I mean, I just want to add, sorry, that we could have, I was hoping this is one of many sessions, so we could host TDA another session specifically on the topic of education, and then one specifically on the topic of vaccine, and try maybe to bring people, say, when we talk about the vaccine, from public health, you know, and kind of make them more thematic so that we can maybe get most out of it.
This is very juicy because I'm working with Steve at the CVA, what he asked me to do, but what happened is things closing so fast. He older people to be mentoring for people who suspended from school, as you just mentioned.
Yeah.
So that wasn't thing, but then everything was disturbed because of what's going on. But I felt that this is a very, very, very complex thing. This needs more hours for us.
Yeah.
I think you're right there.
For me, I'm telling you the truth.
Yeah, I think you're right. There are no simple answers to any of these questions. But what I always love about these sessions, what I find so inspiring is the passion that you have, the drive. And I think those are the things that will really, you know, keep you forward is that passion that you have for change. And it's always really nice to hear. You're right there. I'm aware that we are kind of perhaps running over. So maybe only 2 more things I'll mention to you, just in terms of how you can work with Parliament, how you can find out. Just tying into what Lee said, there are petitions going on at the moment about the black curriculum, so that might be something you want to look into. Just one other way of you finding people to support you at Parliament, you can have a look at what's called early day motions, which are kind of, I guess they're kind of petitions for debates. They don't really kind of trigger any more action, but they're a really good way of you finding people who are interested in particular things. So this EDM, so these again are all searchable online. We'll send you a link to it.
I've just put them in the, I'm putting them in the chat box now.
So this, for example, is looking kind of, I guess, what you said about the app again, thinking about the safeguards for data collection, and you can have a look at the bottom and see who signed this. Okay, these might be people for you, people who you know are on side, they're agreeing with your concerns, your worries about the app. These might be people that you want to get in contact with and work with, as you said, maybe get that consultation, get that change. So do have a little search for these online. Just the final thing I want to mention to you today is about select committees. So just in case you're not sure what these are, select committees, there's ones in the House of Commons and the House of Lords. But if we think about the House of Commons, there are usually around 11 MPs and they're cross-party, which is really important for you if you're thinking about campaigning, is getting that cross-party support to show that it's not kind of a political issue in that sense. And each different government department will have a select committee attached to it who scrutinises, who checks the work that it does. So there's a select committee, for example, for the Department of Health. So what they do is they choose a topic to look into, and then they have a call for evidence. So these are all published on the Parliament website. You can have a look on there, and you can see I guess they have questions, essentially, questions that they want people to give response to. And anybody can give evidence to those select committees. So whether it's you have personal experience of it, whether it's through a professional capacity that you have knowledge, anyone can give feedback to those inquiries. They call people in to give oral evidence, and then they produce a report with recommendations that the government has 2 months to respond to. So there's a couple of inquiries running at the moment which link to the app, so you may wish to have a little look on the website and have a look in terms of the questions they're asking. Can you share your concerns? Can you share your worries through that? Or just keeping an eye on in terms of perhaps what the outcomes will be. And it might be that you want to kind of raise these with your MP as well. So I guess the kind of thing to take away from this is, I guess there's a lot of frustration, a lot of worries here around this app. It is being spoken about at Parliament, and they are talking about it. You have your upcoming meeting with the MP, which I think is a really great opportunity for you to share all of your concerns, share all of the things that you want to say. And what I would say is, you know, it is hard. You know, I can't sit here and tell you there's any quick, easy options to achieving the things that you want. But what I said is what you do have is that passion, is that drive. And you have your network of people who you can work together and support. And, you know, I can't unfortunately offer you any quick fixes, but hopefully you can take some of these tools, some of these things away, and, you know, use a variety of them. Parliament is there for you to work with. It has lots of methods that you can use. So hopefully this will spark some things that you can take away and do.